Okay, good morning, dear students, colleagues. Welcome to these innovation talks. This is the 9th webinar of innovation talks of LUMSA University in Rome. Innovation Talks is a cycle of 10 weekly webinars aimed to discuss innovation, technology, sustainability, and the future of business in society with experts and opinion leaders in the business community. These talks, these webinars are organized in particular by the Department of Law, Economic, Politics and Modern Languages in LUMSA and the Master's Degree in Management and Finance in partnership with Association of Alumni LUMSA. I'm Filippo Giordano and I'm the Program Director of the Master's Degree in Management and Finance. In this webinar, we talk about entrepreneurship, and in particular, how entrepreneurship can improve social inclusion and how it's possible to support entrepreneurial initiatives worldwide of migrants and refugees. So I'm very pleased to introduce my colleague Domenico Nesci, that is Professor of Venture Capital and Valuation in LUMSA, that will introduce our very, very important guest speaker of today, international guest speaker, and the topic of the work of the guest speakers and the topic of our webinar. Thank you, Domenico.
Thank you very much, Filippo. Thank you very much, Professor Giordano. So, hello, everybody. Very happy to be here with all of you today, and very honored to host Valentina Primo. I met Valentina the first time a couple of years ago. Valentina is an outstanding professional and a charming person. She speaks 5 languages. And this is not because she studied at school those languages, but this is because she has been traveling, working, and living in several different countries. When I met her 2-3 years ago, she was still based in El Cairo, where she spent several years doing the journalist first, and then doing the only thing I believe she could do as an entrepreneur, that is founding a company whose name is Startups Without Borders. She will tell you today more about it and about her entrepreneurial journey. The only thing I want to do in introducing her endeavor, Startups Without Border, is reading from her profile what she says about it. So she says that Startups Without Borders connects the most ambitious refugees and migrants entrepreneurs with resources to grow their business, while providing investors with an entry point to under-the-radar startups with disruptive potential. So this is what she says about Startups Without Borders. Now it's time to give the floor to Valentina. Valentina, welcome. I know. Good morning.
Good morning.
I know that today you are in El Cairo. I invite you a little bit, but for you being in El Cairo, of course, beautiful city. So the floor is yours. Everybody enjoy what Valentina is going to say.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Domenico, for such a lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. Good morning. As Domenico said, my name is Valentina Primo, and I'm the founder of Startups Without Borders. We are building a startup ecosystem, a transnational startup ecosystem for refugee and migrant entrepreneurs. And I wanted to start breaking the ice a little bit with a question. I wanted you to think about the concept and the meaning of startup. What does a startup mean to you? I'm sure there's lots of technical definitions and descriptions, but to me, I got to know this word in a very unlikely place in the world, in the Middle East, where building a startup meant building hope. Before I start showing you a little bit about our work at Startups Without Borders, I wanted to share a little video. This is the teaser of the summit that we did in 2020 across 3 different continents. So Filippo, if you can show the video.
I'm not crazy, I'm a genius. Amazing day ahead of us. We got 3 groups done.
When was the last time? Thank you so much. So this is a little bit of the teaser of what we did last year with the summit. We're going to get there in just a minute. I wanted to just share a presentation and showcase a little bit of the story behind Startups Without Borders. Okay, so as we said before, we're building a startup ecosystem of refugee and migrant entrepreneurs. This is our mission. We are connecting the most ambitious refugee and migrant entrepreneurs with resources while also providing investors with an entry point to these startups that are under the radar. Since our launch in 3 years, we launched in Cairo in 2018, we have been taking the conversation around the world, speaking on stages in Rome, in Norway, in Cairo, in Lebanon, really around Europe and the Middle East, highlighting the potential and the impact of these entrepreneurs. And just to give you an example, this is one of the most successful refugee entrepreneurs in the spectrum. He spent 2 years in a refugee camp in the Netherlands. His name is Tay Al-Rujula. And during that period, he did a master's in blockchain technology. From that camp, he participated in a startup weekend event, and he co-founded a blockchain startup called Tyken that gives virtual ID to people who are stateless. 10 million people around the world are stateless today. His startup raised over $1.5 million, and he recently self-published a book called The Invisible Sun. Another migrant entrepreneur, this time based in Italy, in Bologna, Chris Richmond. He has built Italy's first micro-learning app for migrants with 8,000 quizzes, and he has reached over 70,000 users. He recently raised over €1 million, and he has partnered with Italy's largest corporations and UN agencies. Now, what's our impact? What do we actually do? In our events, we host international and local events. We have hosted over 2,300 entrepreneurs. We also organize training programs online and offline. We have so far in 3 years trained 1,300 entrepreneurs. We currently have a growing network of over 5,500 entrepreneurs, 46% of which are female founders, which is a topic that is very, very close to our hearts and close to our mission as well. The summit last year, you just saw the trailer, had 2,300 people registered, 7,000 live views, and 11,000 networking activities. We're providing this space for entrepreneurs in remote areas, entrepreneurs who had to move to a new home because of war, because of different situations, to connect with mentors, with partners, with investors, and with other entrepreneurs to build that network that they don't have in the new countries where they find themselves. This is a little bit of the behind the scenes of our last summit. We held the summit in 3 live stages in Amsterdam, Cairo, and remotely in San Francisco, with 14 live sessions translated to Arabic and 84 sessions in total. Our summit also had very, very high-profile speakers, including the Prince of the Netherlands, Prince Constantijn van Oranje, including the Vice President of Dell Technologies, Anja Monrad, the the regional manager Microsoft for Startups, Roberto Croci, the regional manager of Facebook, Rames El Shihadi, very prominent figures in the corporate, in the tech landscape, and the startup landscape as well. And a big recognition that we were very happy to receive last year, we were selected as one of the top 60 startup events to follow in 2021. Aside from that, one of our largest sources of pride and sources of support comes from the corporate, the tech sector, which is finding an entry point to these disruptive startups, these very, very brave entrepreneurs. And this includes Facebook, this includes GoDaddy, companies that have partnered with us to create digital programs in 2020 and 2021. And we've also been around the media around the world. Our work has been covered by Forbes, Rai, Entrepreneur Middle East, Il Sole 24 Ore, and different newspapers and startup magazines around the world. We have also grown a network of partners that includes over 100 entities from Europe, from the Middle East, and from the US. And this year, we're looking to launch different chapters. But just to take a little step back and take you through the journey, the story of Startups Without Borders, where does this movement, as we like to call it, how does this begin? As Domenico said before, I come from Argentina. And I wasn't born to be a leader. I always thought I wasn't born to be a leader. As a child, I was a very young girl. I was a very shy girl. And shy girls and boys don't have a lot of fun at school, right? They're usually quite bullied. They're usually quite neglected. But I had a dream. When I was 17, I had the dream of going to Italy. I saw a movie called Pane e Tulipani. I fell in love with the language. I fell in love with that country, with Venice in particular. And I decided I wanted to go there. I worked really, really hard to get a scholarship. I started studying the language. And in 2006, I did my first trip to Perugia. I got a scholarship to study the culture and the language of Italy, and that trip entirely changed my life. I realized there were people from around the world in that city, from Afghanistan, from Senegal, from very different countries with very different realities, and that opened up my mind to want to explore a lot more. So from that moment on, I started working very, very hard for another dream. My second dream, which was doing a master's in Rome, in the city I had fallen in love with. 3 years later, it took me 3 years of a lot of hard work to get that scholarship, to save money, because at that moment, I didn't have the funding to move to Europe. You know, for us in Latin America, it's not that easy. Our economies are suffering a lot, and the currency is very low. So it took me 3 years to finally reach Rome. It was 2010, where I finally moved to Rome, when I finally accomplished my dream. And one dream leads to another, one goal leads to another. And I started an internship at the UN in Germany. So after 6 months living in Rome, I moved to Bonn in Germany, where I worked in a building with a completely international landscape, with people from all around the world that were supporting volunteers. It was precisely the UNV, United Nations Volunteers. And that opened up my mind even more to try to learn new languages, to try to get closer to cultures that were different from the Western culture. I go back to Rome. I get a job at the Vatican as a tour guide, exploring the different languages, exploring the Italian culture. And I feel this thirst for more, for having work with more impact. I truly loved my job, but I wanted to have an impact. And I had started journalism. I wanted to really see, social change as it was happening around the world. It was the time where the Arab Spring was sweeping across the Middle East, and I wanted to see that. So I started studying Arabic, and I took my first trip to Egypt in 2012. It was just 1 year after the Arab Revolt. And that trip entirely shook my vision and my perspective. In 1 month, I was able to have conversations with people with very different mindsets. I was able to see the results and the consequences of the Arab Spring, of the revolution. I could see how young people were trying to change their country. They were trying to change their nation, to have an impact in their nation. And after that trip, after that 1 month, I thought, you know what? I need to move there. I don't have a house. I don't have a job. I don't have any certainties, but I have this feeling inside that I have so much to learn from a new culture, from a new landscape, from an environment, a social environment that was constantly changing. Especially because I studied journalism in a moment where 9/11 defined the media landscape and the media narrative. I don't know if you remember, but 9/11, 2001, when the Twin Towers were hit, the entire world started speaking about terrorism. The media started speaking about the Middle East as a region where there was only war, where there was only conflict, where people were killing each other because of religion. And what I had seen going to Egypt was completely different. I had seen how young people were really trying to create positive impact, how young people were trying to modify customs, traditions, and social systems, political systems that were unfair. So I decided to move to Egypt. It was 2013. I took the chance. I took the risk. I moved. It took me 3 months to find my first job. It took me a while to find my spot, my space, my place, my own place in Egypt. And after 3 months, I started working for a company, a social business, a social startup that was connecting NGOs and businesses, right? And I don't know if you remember, but in 2013, something very big happened in Egypt. It's called the Rabaa massacre. And it happened when the military took over the government of President Morsi. There were protests that had spanned through months and months in different sectors of Cairo. And the military decided to repress these protests, where more than 1,000 people were killed. It was called the Rabaa massacre. I was particularly living in Cairo. I was particularly living in an area very, very close to Tahrir Square, the center of the Arab Spring, the center of the revolution. And those days will be days that I will never forget. We entered a curfew. We didn't leave our houses for 4 days, not even to buy bread, not even to go outside and get groceries. These were days where it was very dangerous. You could hear gunshots in the streets, right? And I remember at that moment, I called my boss and I told her, we need to do something. We have to do something to utilize this opportunity for change. People are locked at home. Look at the irony. It's 2021, and with global quarantines, now we're all locked at home. But at that time, speaking of a curfew was something very rare. And I proposed we did a library, a curfew library where people could swap books, used books, and they could also donate books to create libraries for the poor neighborhoods of Cairo. So this is how it went. We created meetups where people would bring 2 books. They would swap 1 book for a used one, and the other book would be donated for the curfew library, as we called it. You know, Steve Jobs, in that famous speech, said, connect the dots, right? And when you're building your own mark in the world, when you're looking to have an impact in the world, you really don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know where it's going to end up. But at the end, you managed to connect the dots, right? And that curfew library, that initiative was a very short-lived initiative. But it took me to another job. It took me to get to know the startup landscape. Because after that initiative, I got contacted by different magazines and different news outlets in Egypt, which offered me a job in turn. And I started interviewing the entrepreneurs that were reshaping the Middle East, that were transforming the Middle East. These were entrepreneurs that were creating startups empowering women. They were creating startups to recycle e-waste, electronic waste. They were creating startups to create jobs for all the youth in Egypt. The large part of youth in Egypt are unemployed. And these entrepreneurs were entirely transforming the landscape. I became sort of the startup journalist in Egypt. I began speaking in conferences, being a jury at startup competitions, because it was a moment where it was booming. A lot of incubators were being born, were being launched. A lot of startup conferences like Rise Up Summit were being born. It was a moment where really the talk about a startup ecosystem was the buzzword, was the talk of the day. And if you look at the second picture, you're going to see a big contrast, right? Because that was my other passion. In that magazine, I was known for writing either about entrepreneurs or about refugees. I started a series called Seeing Humans, where I interviewed different refugees from Egypt, from Syria, from Turkey, from Iraq, refugees that were coming to Egypt and were creating initiatives. We're trying to leave a mark in the world. I remember in Jordan, an interview that left a big impact in me. I interviewed a 20-year-old girl. She was a refugee from Syria, and she told me, we're not just victims. We also want to change the world. At some point, I got to interview a refugee entrepreneur. And that completely changed my perspective. Because if I was inspired by the different entrepreneurs that were creating an impact through their startups in their own countries, the story of a refugee entrepreneur who had moved to a new land at 21, who had moved and supported his entire family to move to a new country, and at the same time was building impact, was building a startup, a business, or an NGO, that was mind-blowing. And I thought, what if I can find more? So I began another journey, a journey where I interviewed refugee entrepreneurs like Tayal Rujula, the blockchain startup we heard before. I interviewed entrepreneurs in Italy, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Cairo, in Iraq. A lot of refugee and migrant entrepreneurs that were creating incredible, incredible initiatives. And this is how the idea of startups without borders took shape. The idea of building a startup ecosystem without borders. A startup ecosystem for all those people that have no home, that had to move their homes, to connect them. I discovered by creating a database that there were incubators and accelerators in places as remote as Iraq, in places as far as Australia, in places as Norway, Silicon Valley, different startup accelerators supporting these initiatives by refugee founders. And I thought, this is more than just a social enterprise. This is a movement. Now, with the pandemic, of course, it became a bigger challenge because after organizing events in Cairo, in Lebanon, in Rome, we were hit by the pandemic and we realized we could no longer organize events. The core of our activities was hit once again. So in 2020, we decided to go even bigger. We decided to take another leap of faith and host a virtual event that had live stages in 3 different continents. One in Europe, in the Netherlands, one in North America, in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, and one in the Middle East at the heart of Cairo. We jumped in and we realized, we were surprised to find that 2,300 people registered to this event. We were surprised to find that we were able to connect virtually entrepreneurs that were in places like Gaza, where they cannot travel, they cannot move to another country to go to a startup event. And we were able to connect them to investors in Europe, to investors in Egypt, to investors in different countries, and pitch their business and get feedback. We realized that we were able to truly, truly break boundaries through an online event. And we were able to turn a challenge into an opportunity. This is a little bit of the demographics that we got at the summit, at the virtual summit that we did last year. We were able to reach people in Egypt, in Jordan, in Italy, in Turkey, but also people in Philippines, people in Malaysia, people in Zambia, in Canada, Mexico. It was truly, truly an intercultural event. And here's some of the numbers as well, as we saw before. The social media reach went as far as 300,000 people. We had 11,000 networking activities, which means all these messages were exchanged. All these conversations took place in an online format from the 3 stages where we were hosting the event. Now, I know that a lot of you are building businesses. I know that a lot of you are building startups. A lot of you are thinking as well about having an impact through their startups. So I wanted to share a few lessons that I learned through the journey. Lesson number 1, start with your customer. Now, look at the picture in this presentation right now. That was our first event. We started when we were nothing. It was only 2 months. It was March 2018. It was only 1 month, actually, since we had launched the initiative. It was just me and a few volunteers, most of which were surprisingly refugees as well, that were volunteering their time and their effort because they wanted to see this come to life. And we organized this event at the heart of Cairo. We were really, really young. We were really, really small as a small initiative. We were not even registered as a business or as an NGO. And yet we got support. We got a sponsorship by the UNHCR, by the UN Agency for Refugees. We got 200 women who were refugees in a room to pitch their businesses in front of very, very prominent investors and incubators from Egypt. Start with your customer. This is the first lesson. Start by listening to them. They always say, get out of the building, right? In our case, we organized this event. We didn't have a revenue. We were not looking at the business first. The first thing we were looking at is how can we add value to these people that we want to serve? How can we add value? What do they need? Where are they at? We were trying to find what was their situation, and we did that through an event. What you see in that picture is an event that we did with a lot of resourcefulness, with a lot of things, a lot of elements that we brought through partnerships, through help. And here's the second lesson. Don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people think that in order to launch a startup, the first thing you need is to raise investment. So you go and you pitch to investors. I would say, don't be afraid to start. Get some traction and ask for help. You will be surprised at how many people are willing to help. In our case, even the UNHCR, the most important organization helping refugees by the UN, supported our event. We got support from incubators, from accelerators, from investors, from very prominent figures who trusted and believed in this idea. So don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs are going to be willing to support, to help, to exchange resources, to exchange talent, to exchange ideas. This is the first thing I would suggest you to do. Lesson number 3, be resourceful and bootstrap. And this takes us back to what we said in lesson number 2, right? Don't seek investment from the beginning. Showcase the mission, showcase your vision, the reality that you can create through your business. You may think your business doesn't have the chance to create social impact, but actually, every startup is solving a problem. If you're creating a startup, if you're innovating, you're solving a problem. And as long as you focus on the problem, not the solution, don't fall in love with the solution, as they say, focus on the problem. As long as you're doing that, you're changing people's lives. Even if it's only the people that you serve, even if it's only the world of your consumers, you are changing the world. So be resourceful. Find ways where you can add value and you can serve them with the resources that you can have. And it can be through partnerships. It can be through partnering with other entrepreneurs who are also building startups at a very, very early stage as you are. Lesson number 4. And this is a very difficult lesson that you're going to learn through the journey. I am still going through that lesson. Hire slow, fire fast. Culture is everything. You're going to realize that building a team is not that easy. Not only because it's hard to find the right candidate, to go through interviews and to identify the right candidate that you need. You're not going to be able at the beginning to hire a lot of profiles, so you have to be very, very selective. In my case, I went first with a profile that would make me money, a business developer, right? But you also need very key figures like marketing people in your team. It's very important to build a culture. It's very important to find that right fit. So don't hesitate. Don't be afraid of having trial periods. Don't be afraid of having people supporting on an internship basis at the beginning. Be careful and be very mindful of the culture that you're building within the company, because that will very, very highly impact the work and the value that you add to your customers. They say that as a leader, your job is not taking care of the customer, but taking care of your team. Your team needs to take care of your customer. So hiring and building that company culture is crucial. And lesson number 5, the last lesson here, persevere. You don't need to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, the first picture that you saw was a picture of our first event. It was a very rudimentary event in Cairo. We got a co-working space to provide us the venue. We got sponsors to pay for the expenses. We got NGO partners to help us outreach to refugees. And what you see here in this picture is the first summit, only a year later. We managed to get sponsors from Facebook, one of the world's largest tech companies. We managed to get sponsors from UNDP, another UN entity. GoDaddy, one of the largest, fastest growing tech companies in the world as well. And we managed to create a tech conference that was now named as one of the top 60 startup conferences around the world. And all of that happened through perseverance. If I told you what happened just 1 month before this event was reality, if I told you all the things that happened, we were cashless. We had no sponsorships confirmed until 1 month, and it was all through persevering. It was really, really putting one foot against in front of the other. It was really, really walking in this dark tunnel where you really don't see the light, but you keep going and you keep going, because at the end, if you focus on adding value, if you focus on creating value, things fall into place. My former boss, before I quit my job to start this company and take the leap of faith, he told me, you're not going to succeed because you're talented. You're not going to succeed because you have connections. You're not going to succeed because you have money. You're going to succeed because you persevere. You're going to succeed because you fall back 7 times. You fall down 7 times and you get up 8 times. This is why you're going to succeed. You're going to succeed because you persevere against all odds. And this is the most important lesson that we actually learn from refugee and migrant entrepreneurs, because they are the ones inspiring us. They are the ones showcasing that no matter the odds, you can build impact. No matter the odds, you can build a startup, you can build a business and create an innovative solution to a problem that not everyone can see. Thank you so much. I'm here. I'm open to all the questions from the audience now.
Okay, I've been able to unmute my mic, Valentina. It's always a complex operation. So, wow, thank you very much. This was a terrific journey. I mean, it's really, I got enthusiastic about it. How can I sign for Startups Without Border? I want to be part of the story.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this year we're launching chapters. We're launching Angels Without Borders as well.
Yeah. So my question would be exactly this. My first question, Valentina, would be exactly this. So what about the future? So what do you have? I understood that you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So, so everything is dark, but in the darkness, what are you thinking? What would be your wish for Startups Without Borders in the next 2-3 years? I mean, what are you aiming to right now? And what are you working for?
So right before the pandemic started, our goal was to set up chapters, because what happened is that organically, a lot of people began contacting us saying, I want to start a chapter. I want to start doing the events that you're doing at a global level on a local scale. And we had the whole plan, right? It was early 2020. We had a plan to launch chapters in different continents, in different countries around the world. And then the pandemic hit. We couldn't do events. And we learned something from the pandemic. I believe there's a lot of lessons and there's a lot of opportunities that came through this. One of them was this ability to host online events or hybrid events, as we call them, that can reach entrepreneurs in remote areas. They can reach entrepreneurs in places where they cannot move to attend to an event. And so the chance now, the opportunity for us is to still launch these chapters that can do online activities and offline activities combined. So we can also engage local investors, we can engage local mentors and local actors and key players, but with a global scope, with a global audience, with a global participation as well. So we're looking at launching the first 5 chapters this year. These are going to be our first 5 pilot chapters, and they're all going to be connected through a startup competition that will take place in the summit at the end of the year. So this is one thing we're very, very excited about. We're also very excited about launching Angels Without Borders, a community of investors, angel investors that aim to look at these under the radar startups and perhaps invest or perhaps listen to their pitches and give them feedback. So we're very excited about that. We have a partner. I'm not going to mention it yet because it's not fully confirmed, but we have a partner to launch our first pilot for Angels Without Borders as well. So that's something we're looking forward to.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So we have Professor Giordano as well with us, I guess.
Valentina, can you hear me?
Yeah? Yes, I can hear you.
I want to say thank you for this very, very inspiring speech.
Thank you.
I teach social entrepreneurship since 2011, and probably it's one of the most inspiring. I totally agree with Domenico, an inspiring speech that I've heard. And I just want to highlight some key points according to me that are very interesting and that are sort of confirmation of what are the ingredients of a social entrepreneurial initiatives. Of course, the importance role of the entrepreneur, and you represent what it means to be a social entrepreneur, because your storytelling, so in your story, it is evident the importance of the journey behind to arrive to focalize in an idea. Journey means to many experiences, the many places you visit, the many people you met in your life, and I think it's the most important source of inspiring of people in general. Meet people, meet places, have experiences worldwide in every field. So I think all is useful in the life, and all leave something to you.
Yeah.
And the other important aspect, it's the importance to know the problem, to be close to the people, and to feel sort of emotional empathy, to feel, because this feeling is what moves people, not what transform intention in action, and also the empathy is the most important elements to fire people, to aggregate people. And the other, the two, this is about the entrepreneur, the entrepreneur. About social enterprise, I want to highlight two aspects according to me, very important. Of course, the powerful of mission. So the powerful mission is all in every organization, profit, non-profit, social, I don't know. The power of mission is the most important thing. It's what also at the base of the commitment of your workforce. It's at the base of the culture creating processes and so on. And the most important also ingredients for the success of social entrepreneur, the social enterprises, is the movement. The movement create ambassadors of your social enterprises. We have project work with students now about social social business plan. I don't know, they experiment out. And I always highlight the necessity also to combine a commercial activity with a sort of advocacy activity. So you need to create a culture also. So you need to create a community that is close to your social enterprise. That is the most important insurance, no, of the sustainability of the organization, no. And because the success of the social enterprise is also in the capacity to create a new culture. No, it's and this is the most important thing that amplify generate the real impact, because the impact is not only the capacity and ability to sell the specific product, to deliver the service. It's in this sort of amplification of your activity created by the movement, the community that is close to you, that talk to you, that is the ambassador of your social enterprise. So thank you again for this very, very intense and full of elements speech. We don't have time to talk about other aspects, but I just wanted to highlight what, according to me, is more important.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying. And, I think we used to speak about social businesses as a separate category, right? And we still do. Social enterprises are seen sometimes as, the idealists, the tree huggers, the ones that don't make money, But I think that every business has an impact, Businesses and startups are changing the world for the better or for the worse. I mean, if we look at Facebook, if we look at Airbnb, if we look at the biggest startups around the world today, they deeply, deeply transformed our culture. They deeply changed the way we relate to one another. They are changing things like trust. They are changing tourism, Airbnb, for example, or Uber, the sharing economy. They are transforming. I mean, businesses are transforming reality. So they all have a social impact, whether they say it or not. And hopefully in the future, every business is going to have a positive social impact. We're seeing the consumers today are, especially the Generation Z, the post-millennials, they're more and more mindful of supporting business or consuming from businesses that are socially responsible as well. So while that changes, that also forces businesses to kind of apply these things and to kind of think of the way they're solving problems and the way they're building solutions in a way that positively affects and changes the world, right? And I also love what you said about building a movement. I truly believe that when the mission is a mission that people can relate to, when it's a mission that gives people a hope, an idealistic vision of the future, that's something that can have a long-lasting impact. And the core of the business can change. I mean, we have changed so much, and Domenico knows this. We have changed so much from the beginning. I mean, we thought of doing a platform for investors, a membership platform, and we had so many revenue or business models. Those things, you're going to pivot. But the core, the mission, that stays the same. The problem that you're solving, that stays the same. And as long as you're passionate about that problem that you're solving, you're going to find a way. You're going to find that light at the end of the tunnel.
So, Filippo, do you have a question, or I can put a question too?
No, I'm okay.
No question.
Thank you very much.
I have another question for Valentina. You're getting congratulations on the YouTube chat. So very impactful speech.
Thank you.
So Valentina, Startups Without Borders behind the scenes. So it's a company. So you have, you mentioned a little bit, you have employees, but my question would be, do you have also volunteers? You have ambassadors? So how the company ecosystem is made up of?
Yeah.
So I'm very curious about that, because actually I don't know.
I
Even
love the
if-
question. I love the question. Yes. So we registered the business in England in 2019. So a year after we started, we went through an incubation program in Rome, the Founder Institute incubation program that helped us, or me, because at that moment I'm a solo founder, and register the business. So we're officially registered in England, and we have a team that operates from different countries around the world. So our staff is currently 5 people. We have from our programs manager to our graphic designer to and they're all based in different countries. A lot of them are in Cairo. We have some of them are digital nomads that travel around the world, and today she's in Dubai, tomorrow she's in Ghana, in Africa, and some of them are also in Europe. And we also have volunteers. So we have a lot of volunteers. Currently, they are 12. That they are the ones that manage our communities on Facebook. They are the ones that they support a lot during our events. We have right now, I think it's 10, because we had 7. Now it's grown to 10 different online communities in different countries. So we have Startups Without Borders Netherlands, Startups Without Borders Iraq, Startups Without Borders Palestine. So for each community, we have a community manager. Those are volunteers that help us a lot in basically answering to people's comments or people's questions, sharing the opportunities that we're doing. And then we have, as I said before, our full team, our full-time staff, where we work primarily online today. We don't have a physical office. The pandemic also turned this into a mainstream, and it was great for us because we were already doing it before. So yeah, this is a little bit about what it looks behind the scenes.
Very good, thank you. I have also another question about the behind the scenes theme. There is financing. So you're a bootstrap company, or you have behind you, I don't know, angel investors, family offices, or sponsors, or so. What are the external channels of financing of the company?
Yeah. Okay. So we started bootstrapping completely. I think personally, for me, the idea of raising investment was always a question mark, because because we're building something that is quite new and in a format that didn't exist before. I mean, from the beginning, I was sure that I didn't want to create an NGO. I didn't want to create a nonprofit organization, because I wanted an organization that was sustainable in time. And I truly believe that businesses and social impact are not two different things, are two sides of the same coin. So you can have an impact and you can have a profitable business, right? So from the beginning, I knew I wanted a business. What I wasn't very convinced about was to start raising investment from the beginning. So I bootstrapped. For a long time, we didn't make profit, until finally, with the summit, we started making profit. We hired the team and the ball started rolling. So primarily, our revenue comes from sponsorships. It comes from corporate partnerships, where we do to train the entrepreneurs. They come from our media products as well, because we have a media arm. We have a podcast, we have our website, we produce videos. So a lot of our clients are also incubators or organizations helping refugees that hire us for our media services. So these are our revenue streams. We never got a grant. We never got funding. It was entirely bootstrapped. I have to be very honest. I didn't give myself a salary for a year and a half. So it took a while. It takes, building a business and believing in what you're doing. It takes a lot of sacrifice, but when you truly believe that this is going to happen, it doesn't matter. You keep going, Again, the light at the end of the tunnel, you see that light, you don't see that light, but you keep going, This is, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right, as they say. So this is where we are. We're not raising investments. We're relying on our revenue streams to keep growing and to keep expanding.
Very good, very good. So I'm now not very sure about whether you see or you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So because First you said, keep going even if you don't see the light. And then you said, you see the light. So you see or you don't see the light. So we had to clarify this. Is
What a
the
beautiful
utmost important.
question. What a beautiful question. I think a lot of entrepreneurs will relate to this. It comes and goes. It really comes and goes. One thing is to have a vision and to know that, no matter what, you're going to give it your all. And this is where I stand today. I'm going to give it my all, no matter what, But building that certainty in the midst of uncertainty is part of your job as an entrepreneur, right? Giving certainty to your team as well, and having that certainty when, the reality for a lot of entrepreneurs that are building startups is that you don't have any guarantees. But your self-belief is the first thing. If you don't believe in yourself, why would anyone? Why would a client believe in you? Why would an investor believe in you? So believing in yourself is a muscle that you have to train every day. I work on it every single day. I nurture myself with podcast training programs because, and I think this is the fascinating part about building a business. You're building a business and you're building yourself as an entrepreneur at the same time. There's so much growth. It never ends. It really, really never ends. In dealing with uncertainty, well, your body will not thank you for it, because sometimes it really takes a lot of stress and a lot of not knowing what's going to happen. But again, after you cross a few milestones, you build also that muscle. You build that self-belief that you are going to do it, that you are going to make it no matter what. Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. Very strongly. So
just to conclude, the problem is not to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but to maintain the light inside you. So the light, in the sense, maintain inspiration, passion, and capacity, to generate energy. So the problem is not the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's the light, the energy that you have, that you need to maintain in order, because if you have energy, you have the capacity, to overcome of the obstacles, also to change your route. So the problem is the light inside of the entrepreneur in general. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Valentina. Thank you very much, Domenico, for this opportunity for us to be in contact with Valentina and to host Valentina in our innovation talks. And thank you for all the people that are following and that will follow your presentation in the future, available on YouTube. And see you next week with the last innovation talks, the 10th. We will talk about space economy. So we are at the cutting edge of entrepreneurial experience. Thank you for this journey, to my colleagues, and see you next week. Thank you, Valentina. Let's hope to meet this soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Have a good
Valentina.
day.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.